Queen Camilla's worst nightmare has finally come true. Explosive new palace leaks reveal the Queen is completely terrified of Prince William and Princess Catherine's skyrocketing power, and her desperate attempt to stop them has just backfired spectacularly. For months, the royal headlines have been dominated by the ongoing feud between the Sussexes and the rest of the family. But behind the gilded doors of Buckingham Palace, a far more dangerous battle has been raging, one that doesn't involve Harry and Meghan at all. According to sources with direct knowledge of the private dynamics inside the royal household, Queen Camilla has become increasingly paranoid, and the target of her fear is not who you might expect. While the world has been fixated on the drama across the Atlantic, Camilla has been watching the rise of the Prince and Princess of Wales with growing dread, and newly leaked accounts from palace insiders paint a devastating picture of a woman who feels cornered, outmaneuvered, and frankly terrified by the sheer force of Catherine's public appeal. The inciting incident that has sent shockwaves through royal circles comes from a series of explosive leaks that have begun circulating among journalists and royal watchers with unprecedented specificity. These aren't vague whispers or anonymous tabloid rumors. These are detailed accounts from individuals with access to the highest levels of palace decision-making, and they all point to one staggering conclusion. Queen Camilla considers Prince William and Princess Catherine to be a bigger threat to her survival and influence than Harry and Meghan ever were. Think about that for a moment. After everything, after the Oprah interview, after the book, after the endless Netflix documentaries and tell-all interviews, Camilla apparently lies awake at night worrying less about the Sussexes and more about the quiet, dignified couple building an empire of public goodwill right under her nose. The leaks suggest that Camilla has expressed this fear in private conversations with her closest advisors, describing the Waleses as the ultimate threat to her position inside the palace walls. She reportedly sees their popularity not as an asset to the monarchy, but as a direct challenge to her own authority and relevance. This revelation reframes everything we thought we knew about the power dynamics within the royal family. For years, the narrative has been that Camilla consolidated her power by marrying Charles, surviving the storms of public opinion, and finally claiming the title she always wanted. But these leaks expose a very different reality. They show a queen who is deeply insecure about her standing, who recognizes that she lacks the natural connection with the public that Catherine commands effortlessly, and who understands that in the modern monarchy, popularity is currency, and Catherine is sitting on a fortune. The sources claim that Camilla has become obsessed with monitoring the Wales' public appearances, their media coverage, and their growing independence, viewing every successful engagement by Catherine as a subtle diminishment of her own role. But the leaks don't stop at mere paranoia. They go much further, detailing what can only be described as a secret confrontation that has been playing out behind the scenes for months. According to these insider accounts, Camilla has been actively working to limit Catherine's return to full public duties following her health challenges, and her motivations had nothing to do with concern for Catherine's well-being and everything to do with raw, unfiltered jealousy. The Queen allegedly attempted to interfere with the scheduling of Catherine's solo engagements, pushing for restrictions on how frequently she could appear without William by her side, and arguing that Catherine's independent profile was becoming, in her words, problematic for the overall balance of the royal household. She wanted control over the PR calendar, insisting that Catherine's appearances be vetted through channels that Camilla herself could influence, effectively trying to put a ceiling on how high Catherine's star could rise. This wasn't a matter of protocol or tradition. This was a calculated effort to suppress Catherine's natural ability to captivate the public, because Camilla understood something that the palace has understood for decades, but rarely admits out loud. When a royal woman connects with the people on a genuine, emotional level, she becomes unstoppable, and everyone else in her shadow becomes irrelevant. Which brings us to the historical precedent that makes this entire situation feel like a haunting replay of history. The palace machine has been here before, and the parallels are impossible to ignore. When Diana Spencer entered the royal family, she didn't just marry the heir apparent. She became a global phenomenon that eclipsed everyone around her, including the future king himself. The institution didn't know how to handle a woman whose light was so bright that it illuminated the cracks in the carefully constructed facade of the monarchy. Rather than embracing her power, elements within the palace became jealous of Diana's global stardom and actively worked to suppress her, to control her narrative, to limit her independence, and to remind her at every turn that she was a subject of the crown, not a star in her own right. The same toxic jealousy that poisoned Diana's time in the palace appears to have found a new target in Catherine. But here is where the story diverges in the most critical way. Diana was young, isolated, and married to a man who lacked the will or the vision to protect her from the institution's machinery. Catherine, on the other hand, is married to a very different kind of prince. William watched his mother endure that suffocating jealousy, watched the palace try to dim her light because it threatened the established order, and he made a silent vow long ago that history would not repeat itself with his wife. He learned the brutal lessons of his childhood, and he understood that the only way to protect Catherine from becoming the next Diana was to remove her completely from the grip of the very system that ultimately destroyed his mother. The historical precedent isn't just a cautionary tale here. It is the blueprint for why William has refused to let Camilla or anyone else dictate the terms of Catherine's public life. He knows exactly what happens when a popular princess is treated as a threat rather than an asset, and he has spent years methodically building an infrastructure around his family that makes them untouchable by palace politics. And that brings us to the brutal consequence that has left Camilla reeling and the palace power structure permanently fractured. When Camilla's attempts to control Catherine's calendar and limit her solo engagements became apparent, William didn't negotiate. He didn't appeal to his father for fairness. He didn't call a family meeting to clear the air. He made a move so decisive and so irreversible that it fundamentally altered the balance of power within the monarchy itself. William pulled his family's public relations operation completely independent from King Charles's office, creating a separate, autonomous communication structure that answers only to him. This wasn't a minor administrative shuffle. This was a declaration of independence that effectively severed the Waleses from the traditional palace hierarchy and rendered Camilla's influence over their public image null and void. Overnight, Camilla went from being a queen who could theoretically shape narratives and control appearances to a figure who has zero leverage over the most popular royal couple in the world. The significance of this move cannot be overstated. For generations, the royal family's communication strategy has been centralized under the monarch's office, a system designed to ensure that everyone sings from the same hymn sheet and that no individual outshines the institution. By breaking away, William didn't just protect Catherine from Camilla's interference. He created a parallel power center within the monarchy, one that operates on its own terms, controls its own messaging, and most importantly, cannot be undermined by a jealous queen consort looking to clip Catherine's wings. Sources close to the Wales's new operation say it is leaner, more modern, and far more aggressive in pushing back against negative narratives than the old palace machine ever was. They don't wait for permission. They don't seek approval from Buckingham Palace before releasing statements. They move at the speed of modern media, and they have made it abundantly clear that any attempt to smear or suppress Catherine will be met with immediate and forceful correction. This independence has had a devastating effect on Camilla's standing. Without control over the Wales's narrative, she has been left isolated and increasingly irrelevant in the public conversation. Every time Catherine steps out for a solo engagement and the crowd's reaction goes viral, every time a new photograph of her radiating grace and warmth dominates the front pages, Camilla is forced to watch from the sidelines, knowing she has no power to stop it, no ability to limit it, and no mechanism to redirect the spotlight back toward herself. The leaks suggest she has become bitter and withdrawn, complaining to her inner circle that the palace feels like hostile territory, and that she is being systematically pushed to the margins by a younger generation that refuses to play by the old rules. And in a delicious twist of irony, her very attempts to sabotage Catherine have only accelerated the exact outcome she feared most. By trying to suppress Catherine, she forced William's hand, and William's response has elevated Catherine's status so dramatically that she now effectively overshadows the Queen completely. The public has noticed, even if they don't know the full story behind the scenes. Look at the coverage over the past few months. Catherine's return to public life has been met with an outpouring of support that feels less like a routine royal appearance and more like the celebration of a national icon. The contrast with Camilla's public receptions could not be more stark. Where Catherine draws spontaneous crowds and genuine emotion, Camilla's appearances feel increasingly obligatory, heavily stage-managed, and notably sparse in comparison. The media, sensing where the real power lies, has begun to shift its focus accordingly. Stories about Catherine's fashion, her charitable work, her relationship with the public, and her future as queen consort now dominate the royal beat, while Camilla's activities receive noticeably less oxygen. This isn't accidental. It is the direct result of William's power move, creating a media ecosystem where Catherine thrives on her own terms, free from the jealous constraints of a palace machine that once tried to keep Diana small. The Waleses aren't just winning the popularity contest, they are rewriting the rules of what it means to be royal in the 21st century. While Camilla clings to the old playbook of rigid hierarchy and controlled access, William and Catherine have built something far more powerful. They have built trust. The public doesn't love Catherine because she was handed a title. They love her because she has endured the same palace machinery that tried to break Diana, and she has emerged, not bitter, not vengeful, but stronger and more beloved than ever. That resilience is precisely what terrifies Camilla, because it represents a kind of authority that cannot be granted by a crown and cannot be taken away by a jealous queen. It is authority that comes from the genuine affection of millions of people, and that is the one currency the palace has never been able to manufacture or control. And here is the most devastating part for Camilla. Every day that passes, every engagement Catherine completes, every smile she shares with a child or a patient or a veteran, cements her status as the undisputed heartbeat of the modern monarchy. Charles may wear the crown, but Catherine carries the future. William understood this instinctively, and his decision to protect her independence wasn't just an act of marital loyalty. It was a strategic masterstroke that has positioned the Waleses as the inevitable center of gravity for the entire institution. When Charles's reign eventually ends, there will be no question about who the people are waiting for. The transition won't feel like a change of management. It will feel like the arrival of something the public has been craving for decades. A royal family led by a woman who doesn't need to scheme or suppress others to feel secure, because her power comes from authenticity, not anxiety. Camilla's paranoia, as revealed in these leaks, isn't just petty palace drama. It is the dying gasp of an old guard that recognizes the world has moved on without them. She tried to sabotage Catherine's return out of pure jealousy, and in doing so, she triggered the exact chain of events that made Catherine untouchable. Now Camilla sits in her quarters, reportedly fuming that the palace she fought so hard to conquer has become her prison, while Catherine moves through the world with the effortless command of someone who knows the people are with her. The Queen queen consort wanted control, but what she got was a masterclass in why you cannot suppress a star that shines this bright. William didn't just defend his wife, he dismantled the very mechanism that allowed jealousy to thrive behind palace walls, and in its place, he built a fortress around his family that no amount of royal scheming can penetrate. The fallout from this palace civil war extends far beyond hurt feelings and bruised egos. It signals a permanent structural shift in how the monarchy will operate going forward. No longer can a queen consort or a king dictate the narrative of the heir apparent. William has established a precedent that his family operates on its own terms, accountable to the public rather than to palace committees. This independence means Catherine can continue her work without looking over her shoulder, without worrying that her success is being measured against someone else's insecurity. It means the charities she supports get the full force of her attention rather than being diluted by bureaucratic interference. It means the photographs that circulate globally show her genuine warmth rather than a carefully managed persona designed not to outshine a jealous stepmother-in-law. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a monarchy at a crossroads, watching a quiet revolution unfold in real time. The leaks have pulled back the curtain on a queen who is not the confident matriarch she pretends to be, but a woman consumed by insecurity and terrified of a daughter-in-law who has never once tried to steal her spotlight, yet cannot help but outshine her simply by being herself. Catherine didn't ask for this war, but she is winning it decisively, not with palace intrigue or media manipulation, but with the one weapon Camilla can never acquire, the genuine love of the British people and the world beyond. Is Catherine the real queen of the people? Drop your truth in the comments.